Hi, guys. As the entire nation is seemingly coming out of a global pandemic, Zoom and social distancing have become important parts of everyday life. The result of this new age is the strain on personal and professional relationships. Meeting someone for the first time in a Zoom breakout room is just not the same as connecting with their vibe in person. A lot of nonverbal conversational cues are lost in the process. Amidst this difficult transition, a programmable platform that can help business leaders add and deploy people analytics is not only necessary, it's vital. My guest for today is the CEO and co-founder of Personifwy. Personifwy is a relationship building business designed to assist organizations through candidate onboarding and employee engagement. A true trailblazer, welcome Debi Kar. Thank you for coming on here, and I'm glad we could make this work.
Thank you, Prisha. Thanks for inviting to the show. Good to meet you.
Same here. So before I start off with any other questions, I like to ask my guests about your leadership style. Being the CEO of a startup, you need to be a people's person. You need to know how to make that work. So how would you describe your leadership style?
Interesting one to start with. As you know, there are many ways. We already know some are authoritative, some are collaborative, some are delegative. I generally define my leadership style with a new word. It's called focus on the outcome leadership. As more and more millennial my workforce is, what matters is to focus on the outcome. And why I say that is when I work with my team members, and I love with anyone I work, is to show them what I'm thinking, why I'm asking what I'm asking, right? So that they understand what I'm looking for, what's the outcome I'm expecting, not really saying you do this 5 things, right? So what happens, it's a longer journey to get the outcome at times in the initial days. If something could have taken, let's say, half a day, in the early days of this leadership style, it will take you 2 days. But what happens, a lot of people start thinking, when you're asking for something, what do you look for? What's the outcome? And they're not restricted by what you just tell them. They're thinking about the outcome, and they will come up their own processes, and they will even come back with better suggestions saying, I think there is a better way to reach the outcome, because what we are focused on is the outcome. So I call myself focus on the outcome leadership.
Wow, that's the most unique answer I've gotten for that question. That's so interesting. So it's like you get more of a say in the creative process of how to get there, but this is just the end result that you're looking for. Yep. Very interesting. Okay, great. So the next question is so that everybody can get to know you better. Sure. And let's get a little bit background about your professional career. So how did you shape your career so far?
Sure. Now I have worked in my last 17 years. First 5 years were in all IT services. Then I had a small stint of focusing on a very interesting startup. It was in the space of criminal data analytics. Joined back consulting, 10 plus years with Deloitte Consulting, grew there from a junior consultant to senior management roles, became part of Deloitte CTO Council globally, and a small stint with AWS or Amazon Web Services specifically. Now, one of the things personally that has worked for me in each of these organizations and growing career or changing my thought process is, instead of thinking as an individual that this is my job, this is what I have been given, and this is what I'll do, thinking like a small entrepreneur in your role actually makes you grow faster. Why? Because you're no more constrained just thinking that I have been given this data analysis job, or I have been given this research job or marketing, I'll just focus on that. But you're thinking again, what are the other things that can be done better in the organization? You actually go back to the leadership and start talking about it. So it's part of the visualizing leadership process. So in your role, what do you think can be done better? And you'll generally see this shaping career in sports a lot better. Let's say, and I love to give cricket examples coming from India, right? In cricket, you will see when Dhoni was the captain, right? How do you decide Virat Kohli to be the next captain? Because there's so many other players that are already there. But what used to happen, Virat Kohli used to always go back to Dhoni after the match and talk about, if I were the captain, I would have taken a couple of decisions like this. What do you think? Right? So he was already visualizing himself. If I have to do this job better, if I have to do this role better, what else I would do? Right? Not just on the task that I have. And second, going back and communicating this to the leadership. Otherwise, what you're thinking, nobody knows. So what has worked for me in the similar fashion is to think beyond what you're just the role that we are given, just the task that you're given. Do that well. I mean, focusing on the next role or next promotion is not the idea, but doing your current job better. And how can you do it more ways? And communicating that your leadership works really well, because the leadership starts to think, is this person thinking right? Is this person thinking in a direction that I didn't expect them to, but they're already thinking? That means the person is ready to take on new challenges, right? So that has worked really well for me. Always going back to the senior management saying, I think that we can do this better. And you'll always get that saying, since you came up with the idea, why don't you start driving it, right? So you will get to do more work, but if you do that well, I'm sure you'll grow better and sometimes faster also.
I loved your cricket example. Also, is this like a real thing? Is this a real story?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can read up about something called visualizing leadership and sports. You'll find many, many examples. But I think being mindful is very important. Sometimes we get so busy just working, just getting our job done, focusing on and not taking time to read upon, to reflect upon how else somebody is doing, learning from other industries. I think that helps a lot. You should be spending some time in investing in yourself, saying, how did someone else grow? I think that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are so many examples around us in sports, in music, in science, and day-to-day life, how somebody else grew. Read about them, read upon them, and see if there is something that resonates and you want to follow it, right? So unless you invest in yourself, even if 30 minutes in a week, just reading about how did this work for someone else, right? And always from an adjacent industry or a sports is a very good way to learn that, because in every field you have something to learn, and see if you can apply that. And that will differentiate you from the rest, because everybody is busy just living and delivering what they have been asked to do.
Okay, great. So let's now transition into Personify and how that kind of came into existence. So let's start off with the ideation. How did the idea of Personify come about? And
Sure.
me the journey about how you became the CEO and co-founder.
Okay, sure. So a little bit long. So the two ways how Personify started into coming to picture, and we decided to start something like Personify. So first thing is me and my co-founders, right? We individually have been very good people leaders, and we take pride in it that team members, whether they directly work with us or not in our teams, feel very comfortable talking to us about their career, about coaching, about being mentoring. And that always gave us that confidence that we are good people leaders. Now, but there is a common problem that we see within various organizations of how other people leaders can be developed, because what happens, your experience at the workplace also carries on to your family, and that experience carries on to society. If you're not happy at a workplace, you're not happy, you're going back to your family not being happy. So that has a longer impact. So our thought started saying happier workplace has a lot to do with how do we make every employee experience better. And it's not a charity that I have to make my employees happy. It's not about being doing charity. It has a strong connection to my business growth, right? If people are stressed out, burnt out, they may be highly motivated, but they're not aligned with their managers. I'm highly motivated as an employee, but there are hundreds of productivity barriers that is there for my job. I have to wait for approvals. And even though I know what decisions I can take. Now, some of these things are extremely hard to figure out for leadership. And there is a concept called the tower of ignorance. So if you imagine a pyramid, senior leaders are busy growing the organization, focusing on customer, vision, 5 year down the line, product. So they actually get to see only 4% of the problems that your front facing employees are actually facing, right? So you're busy, you are not getting to see what the problems your employees are facing. Unless you go and figure that out, you'll be busy putting a vision, putting a growth plan, and you'll have difficulty meeting it because your biggest asset, your people, can't deliver it, right? So we started thinking, if I have been a good people leader, how do I connect this back and do this better? And we figured it out. This has to be an organizational wide effort. So what Personify that we came up with, can we make this easier for people leaders, business leaders, or human resource professionals to understand their employee experience better in real time? The way a salesperson would understand their customer better, can I understand my own internal workforce better, right? What's working for them, what's not working for them? Because if you don't take real-time action, you'll not achieve the business growth that you're looking out for, right? So I call it, you have been focusing on external customer for growth, for business, which is absolutely necessary. Who is going to deliver is your internal customer, which is your employees. So you need time to understand employees better. And that's what Personify sets out to do, helping people leaders, business leaders, or HRs understand people better, employees better, their real-time pulse of the organization, so that you can take timely decisions.
And there's actual research on that there's like a huge significant benefit that companies also get. Employees are happier. Happier employees, as you said, are assets to the company. That's really, really interesting. So now you have this idea and you start off, and you and your co-founder are ready with this idea, but how do you get funding for that?
Yeah, I think more than funding, when you start, as fund is necessary, but I think, why would someone fund you? Because we're talking about funding. Why would someone fund you and take that risk of putting money on you, right? They see that they will get 10x return on this, right? Nobody is going to do this for charity. Yes, there are people who also invest in a concept for global good, but that's very less, right? We're talking about successful businesses, right? So if somebody is putting in money with the aim that they will get 10x return or 20x return on their investment here, the return on investment is going to be good. That means they need to believe in the problem that you're solving. They should see that this is a problem that is worldwide or is a large problem to solve. Second, is this the team that can solve this for me? Because there are ideas, there are problems that need to be solved, but is the person who is at the seat and saying we will do this is the right person to solve it, right? I think that are two most important things to look at in the early stage startup. Is this problem big enough? And is this the right team to deliver it? And then comes the third or other questions. What have you done so far to test this out with your minimum viable product? If you have gone to the market, what customer feedbacks do you have? Are customers signing up for you, right? Have you actually worked with the customer and solved this for them? What's the outcome that you got out of it? See, the difference is you have to look at, you're in a B2B business versus a B2C business. And then there are nowadays D2C and other things are coming up. When you're an enterprise software, enterprise business like us, right? For us, the buyers are the organizations, right? Employees are the end users, but buyers are the organizations. Now, unless I have worked with some of them, talking about the idea, implementing the idea with them and seeing some outcome, it's difficult for an investor to gaze that the idea looks good, the product looks good, but seems difficult to sell, right? There is an adoption problem. Have you solved it? Have you cracked it, right? So depending on where you are in this journey, extremely early stage idea, people will look at, is this a big problem? Have you done enough research? Without building the product, have you spoken to hundreds of people to say, yes, this is a problem? And if you build it, they will take it, right? Do you have that validation done? And is this the right team to deliver it? That's what they will look for. And once you start proceeding, they will look at which customers started adopting it. And you will have to look at these early adopters, because that becomes your case study, and that becomes your testimonial saying, my early adopters have got benefit with the product, and I want to now scale it, right? So when you go to asking for funds, the moment it is about scaling up, growing, hey, I have figured this out, this is working, now I need to make it grow, it is easier, because then, okay, I have seen 1% of it, let's grow it. But when you have not proven at all for any early adopters, it's the problem statement and the team behind it and how you're thinking to go about is more conviction that the investor will show.
That was like a lot of great information. Was that kind of the route that you guys took as well through Personify, or what did you guys start off with kind of your own contributions, and then as you grew, then you got more investors on board? Was that similar to what you were talking about?
Yeah, I think being once you have been in the job for certain years and then you are starting not as young as straight out the college, you'd be building on networks also, your own networks, and you'd also be, and by the way, there is never enough saving to start your own company. We always think I'll save enough and start my own company. It's never enough, right? But yeah, you do have certain leverage. So we started bootstrapped, and we have been bootstrapped for long. We just finished a very early stage pre-seed round through known networks of very seasoned people. But network helps, right? Mm-hmm. People who have been seed investor, angel investors in your network, or you have tried to build that network over a period. Staying in touch with them is very important, because you're showing that, hey, you are thinking about it. You're showing progress over 3 months, 6 months, then they start believing in you, that you're serious about it. And obviously, like I said, funding is a process. If you can match to what they're looking for, return on investment, they would obviously take the bet on you. So for us, it has been bootstrapped for long, from some of our own savings to start, and early pilots, early customers, paid pilots, and then paid customers. But yeah, now to grow, we have angel investors on board now.
Okay. Yeah. So 2 main takeaways for early starters is that mostly investors they're investing in the idea, of course, but they're also investing in the team. They're investing in whether or not you can get that distance and you can really do justice to the idea. Okay, great. So now you did talk about kind of expanding, but not only in the sense of like the size of the company, but I would also assume that you have to constantly also think of new kind of updates, new features, and capabilities for your product, the original product. So how do you come up with that?
Yeah, I think more than features, like I say, it's the problem outcome that we are solving, right? Because features wise, we can build hundreds of features. Mm-hmm. And if you focus on the outcome, if I build this, what problem am I solving for my customer? If I bring in a new feature, it could be as simple as I'm shortening the time to take an action, right? It could be as simple as I'm making it easier to do certain tasks, right? But it has to be linked to the outcome. Now, what we do, we took a very consultative approach with customers' need first. So obviously, as an entrepreneur, you'll have 100 things that you think you can do in the product. But what we do, when we work with the customer, we see, does this matter to you? And we actually listen to them, saying, you define what 10 things would work for you, rather than we showing our 10 things and asking them, right? So why that has worked for us so far? Because you are taking customers' input to see what matters to them, and then designing that into the product. Because if I do that, my customer is happy and they will take it. End of the day, it's not the feature that matters, it's the outcome that matters. So if the outcome is what customer is looking for, you can always do it better than what the customer asked for. But taking customers' input to design your roadmap, to design your features is more important. But yeah, like I said, how the feature will work, you can do it better, because the nitty-gritties they may not know. They are focused on, hey, I need a better way to be able to reach to my customer. I need a better way to be able to just issue a voice command and get things done, right? So listening to customer in the early days would actually save you more time and money rather than building 100 things, going to market, build 5 things, take to the customer, tell them what else would you love on top of this, right? What would solve your problem? And they will tell you 3, 4 things, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a board of customers, even if they're pilot customers, free customers, early adopters, take their input to design your roadmap for next 3 to 6 months, because it will frequently change in the early days.
Okay.
So
But then,
customer input is very, very important.
yeah, so customer input is very important, but how do you do that? Like, how do you build that goodwill and stay connected to these customers, especially the early customers? I feel like they're very important for startups because they're like, I feel like if you have them, they're like loyal throughout the way. So
Right.
how do you build those strong connections with your early customers?
Sure. I think it again varies depending on the kind of business you are in, right? But end of the day, what customers are looking for is someone as a business who is able to think about the problem better, who is able to connect with the customer needs better. And they see that what you're saying, what you're talking means you know your game. Now, how do you do that? Right? So it could be a push or pull approach, right? You know, some customers, you're pushing them to say, give me feedback, or you're pulling more, or you're attracting more people to give you that feedback, right? And the best way, and especially in the recent time, you would have seen taking a thought leadership approach in terms of content, sharing what you think about a problem, about a sector, about the product, why you build it, what problem would it solve. Now, the more you are putting those contents out into the media, social media, wherever your customer is, you have to figure out where does your customer spend time, depending on the sector you are in. And you're sharing your views there. Like for us, building happier workplaces and letting leaders know how to gauge employee experience in real time is important. And a lot of them would be on LinkedIn. A lot of them would be on business leadership based social media. We try to share more there, right? Now, what happens? People will start correlating with you, saying, yeah, this is something that I want, or this is a problem I have. Debi seems to be saying the right things that I need, right? So if you're able to share your views, the problems that your product is solving, the intention of how you're shaping this outcome differently, I think people will start relating and they will actually reach out, right? Sharing their feedback. Great. So that's the way of attracting some people, by sharing more content. If I can put it simply, share what you think can be done in this space, and thought leadership will always add back. Fair
enough. So now for the next question, correct me if I'm wrong, but before Personifwy, you co-founded another company for around 2 years. Am I right? Or
yeah, absolutely. That was back in 2009-10, long back. Yes.
Yeah. So it was before that, but I kind of wanted to know about that experience and how that experience contrasted with you founding this Personifwy, and what that experience kind of taught you.
Absolutely. So yeah, the first one that I happened to get started on was a very criminal data analytics side of the world. We were helping investigating agencies understand data patterns better. Barely a couple of years into my job, I was in London, left my job, came back, got in touch with really, really good colleagues at my workplace who were building further on this. So joined hands with them and got started. Really, really great learning experience, because I would say 10-12 years ago, people were not talking about analytics. People were talking about simple business intelligence and basic reporting, understanding. Big digitization was still getting adopted, right? It was not everywhere. It was still getting adopted. So it was great learning experience at that point in time. But what worked and what didn't work? What worked was, for me personally, I consider that as a good investment in myself, because I learned how customers think, how difficult it is saying I can build something to how I can sell something, right? Because generally as a technologist, what first thing comes to my mind, I can sit tonight and code this, right? I can build another feature which will look cool, right? Now, when we went out to the market, and especially the market that we were operating in, the end customer was not able to understand some of the terminologies we have used in the product, because by saying this is a graph, they don't know what is a graph. So you need to, that was the first learning, that you have to speak the end user's language. If you make the, let's say the buyer for us was actually a chief investigating officer or a very senior government officer, but the end user would be someone at a police station, someone at a very junior role who may not understand the larger picture. Now the product is bought. If it is not used, you'll be thrown out in 6 months, right? So it is important not just to think about the buyer who is taking the buying decision. It is very, very important to think about the person who is going to use it. Because if you make them, if that becomes sticky, the people who are using are giving the feedback, this is good, I'm using it, it is helping me, then the whole unit, whoever has to take a decision, yeah, it's working for my people, then it's working for us, right? Otherwise, they bought it, they will always have an adoption problem, right? Now, so 2-3 things that I learned and that didn't work at that point in time. We were probably a little ahead of time taking analytics to the market and not making easy enough for them to understand why it matters for them to do it, right? For example, if I go to a telecom customer, which we did back 10 years ago, and telling customer churn is a problem for you, I can tell you which customer is going to leave your telecom brand and shift to another network. But you are saying this at a time when only they're growing at like a 50%, 60%, 70%, because new customers are getting added. For them, they have enough market out there to still grab. Few customers leaving is still not a problem for them, right? So when we're going with that problem statement, yes, the problem is correct, but it is not a problem for the organization yet, right? So you have to time the market as well, saying, is this a problem right now for the customer? So you shouldn't stop, think about the problem, go to the customer and validate. Is this a problem that bothers them now or not, right? So I think that's where we learned a lot, that we were ahead of time. We have to make it easier to adopt, not just sell the product, right? And selling, marketing is equally important than just building the product. Building the product is probably the easiest part. But you can't, if you can validate your idea without building the product, doing it in a manual manner, that's the biggest validation. Saying, okay, you have a problem, let me solve it in a manual way. Let me see if I can solve it. It's not going to be the shiny thing, but I'll try to solve it in a manual way. If it is solving, if it is repeating need, then build the product out of it.
Cool. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that like being able to like do something super impressive technically, and having all this, like jargon, if you put that in front of someone who doesn't understand it, there's absolutely no like use for that, because at the end of the day they're using it. Great. Okay, so you did talk about, you mentioned this briefly while you were telling me about your journey, but you were working at like a 9-to-5 job, and from there you kind of decided to take the risk of starting your own business. But like people have a lot of, I guess, myths and things that they think about startups or entrepreneurship in general, and especially the younger generation. So what would your advice be for people who want to start something of their own? And if you could you also like debunk some of these myths that you've learned along the way? I know you touched upon some of these things, but just another, so that you can like brief over that again.
Sure. I think it is good to start early if you're thinking about building your own startup for a couple of reasons. One, it actually helps you grow faster in your career if you have to go back to a job. Second, you have probably the less risk, the amount of risk that somebody has to take to start a company. Let's say you're starting after you're married, after you have children, you would have your risk taking appetite goes down, right? It actually becomes a lot riskier as you grow in your career than you can do at early when you're pretty young, straight out of college. You have less risk. All you can lose is probably a year of job or 2 years job. So you have not a lot to lose, and probably at the if I take the risk cycle, you are the complete least end of doing. So you're not actually taking a risk. So I when I have conversations, I remove the word risk for youngsters. I say, think of it as an investment in yourself. Do try out entrepreneurship early on because it changes your thinking, right? You start thinking about all of this. How do I make things adopted? How do I make it? How do I make something? Some people understand my concept. So you're working on multiple areas, right? Shadow negotiation. You're talking about convincing someone. You're talking about solving a problem, focusing on outcome. That's what you're doing when you are doing starting early on, right? Mm-hmm. And you're actually not taking a risk. You're investing in yourself. Risk is sometimes when you are losing something. But early on, what are you losing? You have nothing to lose, right? You are only investing in yourself. So remove the word risk for an early youngster who wants to do something. Put that as, would you want to invest in yourself in first 2 years? If yes, go for try entrepreneurship, right? Because that will, let's say, two example, person X starts with a fantastic job, joins a big four versus person Y who is getting into entrepreneurship. Yeah, the person X is growing at such a pace. Your startup didn't work. Your entrepreneurship didn't work. You started a job after 2 years. And I can guarantee you a person who has gone through the entrepreneurship, in next 5 years, you will grow a lot faster than the person you would have started 2 years ago before you, right? So this is pure investment in yourself, right? So remove the word risk, think of it as an investment because you're learning skills that is hard to learn in a job early on.
Yeah.
So that's how I would summarize.
That's a completely different way of thinking about it. And you have me sold. Like I want to start something new now from that. And I guess like all those skill sets, like whether or not your idea ends up working out, like you can always put that in your resume and you can see like, I know I have this experience because I kind of, you kind of have to do everything when you're in the early stages of a company, of starting a company. And transitioning from that, now that you are the CEO of a startup, so what does an average day look like in your life? It's like really hectic, I know, but if you could just tell us what that looks like.
Sure. And I'll stick that to very early stage startup day looks like, right? So you actually play 8 to 10 roles in a day. And it changes depending on whether your customer has a request on that day, whether you're focused on raising fund. So it changes, but you actually end up playing 8 to 10 roles in a day. Typically, your day would begin ensuring your team members are aligned. They know what needs to be done. Is there a customer request that needs to be handled? So prioritizing things for the day. Generally, I make that happen in the beginning of the day, that unless I make it clear for the team, re-emphasizing the priorities, so that, because sometimes what would happen, they would be waiting on me for me to take a decision. And if I keep myself busy in the first half, they are wasting the entire first half waiting for something to be done, right? So get that, unblock them so that they are free for the day. If they are dependent on you. So my first part of the day or early in the day starts with setting up the team on their own. And if they have any dependency on me, clearing that up. But then, so that's where you start with the basic leadership of just collaboration, ensuring the team is on. Then you pick up a sales head, right? Okay, which customers are we going after? What are the channels that we're going to talk? Are our messagings in the social media working? Are our emails working, right? Do we need to change that so that we can reach out to more customers? Then you actually start becoming a content creator, thinking, okay, I should start writing something so that we can share our idea, right? So you suddenly start becoming content writer. Then you have to think about a problem that hits you. You become actually a person who is debugging, sitting with the team, saying, okay, how do I fix this, right? While you're fixing this, ensuring that the problem gets fixed for my customer at the early stage, you're also thinking, how do I resolve this problem from not reoccurring? That means you're thinking about a feature already. So you are a product manager suddenly, right? So you're thinking, how do I make this product better? Because this should not happen. How do I make this easy? Creating the roadmap, backlogs, right? So you're a product manager after some time. And then how much money do I have left in my bank account to run? What's my burn rate per month? How much am I earning from my customers? How long can I survive? Oh, I can survive for 3-4 months. So I need to constantly be looking after investors to seek for funding, right? So I have to start working on creating my pitch deck, projections, numbers that would matter to investors. So you're now looking at raising fund. Now you'll hear a lot of time people saying raising fund is a full-time job. Product management is a full-time job. Absolutely it is. But trust me, at an early stage startup, you have barely 2 or 3 senior people or the founders who have to play each of these roles, right? So you will see, I will not say in a day, but in a week, guaranteed, you will be a developer, you will be a salesman, you will be a marketing person, you are raising fund, and you're ensuring your current customers are also successful, right? So it is challenging, it is not easy, but you got to balance it out, right? Some organizations have very high growth plans saying, I have to grow, get 100 customers in next 2 months. Some would have say, I will get 10 customers, but I will make them really, really successful. So depending on where you are, your effort in either sales will increase or your effort in operations will increase, ensuring your customers are successful. But you will, as an early stage founder, end up doing each of these activities in a week's time, right? Mm-hmm. So, and there is no letting go of any of this. So, but how do you get not to do any of this is by attracting more people who are capable of doing this and saying, I agree in the vision, let me support you, right? Mm-hmm. But being part-time also who are supporting can only take you so far, right? So yeah, you'll have to go through all of this in a week's time for sure.
So now $1 million question, do you get any sleep in this?
I do. So I would love to sleep a little more. But what happens, right? You're constantly thinking. Sometimes what happens, even if you are not really working, you're thinking through what more can I do. So I after all this work, I invest some time in reading, and that is also to take my mind off just from the problem that I'm solving, right? Because learning from different industries is very, very important. Different events that's happening around is very important. So I would love to sleep a little more now, but I do get good sleep. It's all about prioritizing.
I was initially gonna ask, do you get 8 hours of sleep? But then as you continued talking, I was like, no, I'll just ask, do you get any sleep whatsoever?
I think, I mean, it's a personal choice. I think if you can train your body to be enough with 6 hours, that's more than enough, at least for an early stage founder.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, great. Ideal situation. So now, since you are in the tech area, your product is, so I would love to know from you what you think is growing and upcoming in the tech industry, particularly concerning what you're doing and analytics.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, if you actually follow me, you'll see me talking a lot about technology, innovation, what's happening. A lot of classes I take at various universities is about challenging the status quo, go beyond incremental thinking to exponential thinking. Some of the observations and learnings that I am also capturing as part of analytics space and all that is growing is community building is becoming a lot bigger. The way you'd see earlier, I had a product and I would go to customers, right? But now what people are doing is first building a community about a problem, about a thought, about a concept that some people relate to, and they are building a community around it first. And from that community learning, they're saying, what product can I bring for this community? Okay. It's not technology. I'm talking about how people are approaching technology right now, or a new product idea right now. People are building a community, then deciding what product would actually fit into this community. And that is how you will see the next revolution of Web 3.0 that's driving towards is decentralizing and more community driven than centralizing authority and things like that, right? So if I talk about exponential change, for me, that's Web 3.0. And for us as Personify, right, how are we trying to shape this journey right now is hybrid work is going to stay, whether you like it or not, right? It may not be 100% remote. It will be hybrid workforce for sure. You will have a lot of gig workers as part of your workforce. You will have employees who have multiple professions, as we were talking before the show, right? It's no more one person saying, I have just one profession, I'm an engineer, I'll continue to be an engineer. People will, and more increasingly digital native millennial workforce, right? For them, some things comes natural, right? They would expect to do different profession over the next 10 years, right? So you'll have a varied workforce in the place. So unless you have tools, technologies, analytics to personalize their experiences, right? What are my tenured people thinking? What are my new joiners thinking? What are the expectations my young workforce has versus the expectations my tenured workforce has? How can I personalize? How can I leverage tools and technology to support their experience to be better? You'll be actually pulled in different direction while running an organization. And it is not just for small organization, mid organization. Larger organization will have 10 different problems because you have more people and you have no idea how they're thinking, right? So where I see personalizing experience works is our focus. And you'll see that happening in every problem that you can pick up in the space of analytics. You are an e-commerce company. There is extreme amount of information overload for your end consumer. They are bombarded with so much information. It sometimes becomes hard, right? Everybody's offering discount. Everybody's offering product, a range of product. So personalizing, reducing the information overload and being able to tell this is what matters to the customer is going to be important. So whether you're e-commerce, you're a banking, you're a fintech, you're a health tech, I think analytics that supports personalization is going to be the next 8 to 10 years focus for companies, because that's the only way you can grow and attract customer, build a community which supports your product to grow further.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I honestly think this is the age of analytics, and there's so much data everywhere. You need to actually be able to understand it. And that's what data analytics gives you.
Absolutely.
So lastly, I want to ask you, what advice do you have for the next generation of leaders?
For the leaders, I would rather, instead of advice, I'll just share what I've been learning, if I can say, right? I think if you are considered as a leader somewhere by some people, right? They are looking up to you. They are expecting you either to solve their problem. That's That's what most of the people expect. My leader will solve my problem, or at least show them the path, right? To be able to do that, to be able to continue to be a leader, you should be thinking ahead. If we can invest in ourselves as a leader, invest in yourself, saying, how do I make things easy to understand for the people? How do I make that person who is considering me as a leader, is dependent on me or expecting me to be the leader? How do I make those persons start thinking on their own? Like I said, probably just me, that's the way I think. If I can teach someone how to think about the outcome and do it better, they will be more self-reliant to do it rather than coming back to you for each and everything. Again, depends on the situation you're in, but I just have two things, like I said. Invest in yourself so that in learning, how do you communicate and make it easier for people to understand? A lot of time what happens, there's so much learning as a leader you have, but when you express it, when you share it, the other person is not getting it. So make it easy for the other person to get it. Give examples that the other person can understand. Maybe from a different industry, sports they love, right? The companies they love. Use examples that the other person can understand it. Otherwise, there is no point. If you can't share and make the other person learn, see what you are trying to tell, then it is difficult. So make it easy for someone to understand. Second, give them ways so that they can think on their own to solve the outcome rather than giving them saying, just do these 5 things, you should be good to go, right? A lot of people would ask you, how do I grow my career? I want to achieve a job. Rather than telling them these 5 things to do, which sometimes we will need, but if you can tell how to think about going it, right? Let them do on their own. But I think letting them learn thinking about the outcome is going to be very, very important as a leader. So yeah, that's what I will suggest.
Yeah, great advice, Debi. Thank you so much again for coming on here. You really brought some insightful moments in this, and thank you. I'll link all your information down below. What you're doing with Personify is great, and I'm really looking forward to all that the company and you achieve. So
thank you.